few other disciplines, not to mention his career as a pilot. And so it's really difficult. It's really difficult to introduce Dr. Nagaswamy, and I think maybe the best way to do this is to tell a little story. And the story is also, it's a very important story for Dr. Nagaswamy. It's at the heart of his short biodata that was Xeroxed and distributed, far above his many books, many of which are not mentioned even here. And that's the story of well, it begins by a person in Tamil Nadu tilling or digging up his land to build expand his house, and stumbling upon a huge Chola bronze, Chola Natarajan statue of Nataraja Shiva, and it's a kind of world treasure basically. It happens every once in a while in Tamil Nadu that people find these things in the ground, and this farmer basically decided to sell it. He sold it for a few pennies. I think 200 rupees was the sum, and it changed a few hands until it was sold for over $1.5 million to a Canadian businessman who wanted to put it in the pavilion of his company or bank or whatever it was. And just to make sure that he has the right thing, it somehow traveled outside of India. Just to make sure that he has the right thing, he gave it to the curator of the British Museum in London to kind of run a check on this and maybe clean it a little bit, and they called the police. And soon after that, there was a trial in London where the Indian government basically sued that this Natarajan, Shiva Natarajan from Pattur in Tamil Nadu be returned to his home, and the business person said, well, I bought this legally, and so on. And that was a very interesting case. It was in 84, I think, 84. There were a few interesting decisions that the judge had to make. One decision was whether this statue of Shiva Natarajan was the actual statue that was missing, that was dug from the ground, and as a specialist, Dr. Nagaswamy made this amazing presentation that proved, based on his vast knowledge of all Chola bronzes and all Shiva Natarajans possible, that this must be the same Shiva Natarajan from Pattur. Then there was another question that the judge had to decide upon, which is who can be the plaintiff in this case, because for some reason the government of India was not a legal plaintiff. It had to be a person who had to reclaim that Shiva Natarajan, and the most natural person was Shiva himself, to claim that this part of him, this aspect of him, this Chola representation, this Natarajan, had to be returned to him in his temple in Pattur. And so the judge had to decide whether Shiva is a juristic entity and whether he can come to the court as a plaintiff. And given the way the British justice system is run, this was considered and approved. Shiva is a juristic entity. And so there was then there was the discussion as to whether this is actually a religious icon, if this is really part of Shiva, or if it's just now that it's out of the temple and being dug and commodified and sold, maybe it's just an art thing that belongs in a museum and is owned by its buyer, however he legally obtained it. On which case many people were summoned to testify. The greatest scholar of Shaiva Tantrism, Alexis Sanderson, stood against God Shiva and said that this has nothing to do with Shiva. It's just a Chola bronze, and it has to stays. But again, the side that Dr. Nagaswamy represented won the case, and at the end of the day, Shiva returned home. And Nagaswamy thinks that this is the peak of his career, and it kind of involves so many of his skills and personas and expertise. So it's a pleasure and honor to have you here. And,
Thank you. Professor Eagle Brunner. I hope I am audible there. Okay? You want me to raise my voice little? No? Okay. Right. And it's a great honor and privilege to have been invited to be here in this great institute, the Chicago University. I am thankful to Professor Brunner, who the moment he came to know that I am here in US, he immediately sent me an invitation to come and present on any aspect of Indian art. And very rarely we have institutional heads quickly jumping into to get scholars to present their paper in their short visit. I am extremely thankful to you, sir, for giving me this opportunity, and also to be present in the midst of such great scholars, Professor Linhoff, Professor Tar, and my good friend Saskia Ebeling, who took me around Cologne architecture and so on. And in the midst of all of you who are all greatly interested in the subject, and my young student, I can call you as a student, I hope, my young student Risha Lee, who is also a research student here, who is now specializing in South Indian inscriptions, especially Tamil inscriptions, which she can read very fluently. I hope in the near future this great institute will have a section dealing with the most vital source of history, namely inscriptions, written records. Others have an element of little imagination, poetry and other things have imagination, but solid factual information to reconstruct history. Not only political history, administrative history, judicial history, or literary history, and of course art history. You have to depend upon written records and dates, and you have to fit in where you don't have the date between one point and another point, where you have a dated monument, dated inscription. So we have nearly 25,000 inscriptions copied from Tamil Nadu alone, right from about 2nd century BC to 1900, and they throw such valuable light on all aspects of history. All aspects of history. I hope very soon we will have one section in this great institute, so that all our findings are based on solid factual material. Sir, I thought I will present a paper on aesthetics of Indian art. These are presented as just suggestions, and I hope you will take it up and build it up, question or dismiss my views, but I propose to show you Indian art history, particularly sculpture and temple architecture. They developed along with the Alankara Shastras, which developed through the centuries, the literature which developed through the centuries. So one has to correlate this development of this particular science from early times to modern time, mutual impact, and how it evolved. This will be my topic of this evening. There is a text called Chitra Lakshana. This is a very interesting text, the student goes to the teacher and asks him, teach me the definition of art, Chitra Lakshana, teach me Chitra Lakshana. The teacher says, to understand Chitra, you must have a knowledge of dance, Natya. So the student says, teach me something about Natya. Then the teacher says, you should know what is rhythm, tala. In order to understand dance, you should know rhythm, tala. It's called tala in Sanskrit. Then the student says, teach me tala. See, if you want to know something about tala, you must know the composition which is used for the dance, rhythmically presented. So you should have some knowledge of this kavya. Then he said, the student says, teach me kavya. The teacher said, to know kavya, you should know the words, syntax, meaning, how you compose the poetry, and so on. So it is an extraordinary ancient text which very clearly shows that all these are interdependent. And so I thought I will take that as the model and try to show you not only sculpture but also other parts of the interacting disciplines. This is just, you have already got it. Who I am, who is the gentleman standing before you, is just. Next. You know this is Indian laddu. The moment you see, you feel like eating it, you know. Next. It comes to you. Next. You know this as vada. Vada. Now all these, when you eat, they give you a taste. The taste is called aswadana in Sanskrit. To experience that taste, aswadana. And of course, it's called rasa. The ultimate thing that you experience is called rasa. Next. Bhaji. So there is an ancient text which says, when we talk about rasa, the realization of aesthetic beauty, you see, you are reminded of this rasa which you taste, and these are all made of different ingredients, but each has a different taste. So Indian poetics have divided aesthetic realization into 8 or 9 basic rasas, and they have their ingredients to realize at the end. Next. Now, like the Himalayan mountain from where this river flows throughout India, and to Central Asia, from Central Asia in the west to whole of Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Java, in all these places this concept has permeated from the very beginning of the contact they were able to establish. Next one. This is Chitra Lakshana, which is a definition of art. Next. Here I am showing you a dancer just holding her hand. Next. Here is another dancer. She is also holding the hand like this. But there is a subtle difference. Both of them are dancers, both of them are dancing. This is called the first offering of flower in Bharata's Natya Shastra, called Tala Pushpa Putam. Pushpa Putam. She is having the flowers in her hand, offering it at the beginning of dance. This is what we see in the worldly actions. This is a worldly action in which she just offers it. But this girl, she has no flower in her hand, she is just suggesting that she is offering it. So this is what we call the dramatic presentation. This is just a suggestive presentation that flower is being offered. There is no flower. So that is worldly, and this is dramatic, or what is called Natya Dharmi, and that is called Loka Dharmi. In Sanskrit we call it Loka Dharmi and Natya Dharmi. According to the poetics, when you make anything explicit, then it is something like a statement. But when you suggest it, this has the greatest appeal. The spectator participates in it and has a feeling of it. So suggestion is the basic of Indian aesthetics, overriding the Loka Dharmi. I will come to it a bit later. Next one. Yeah, you can see that. You have a feeling of offering, but nothing. This is what we call the dramatic, Natya Dharmi. In Tamil also we have a name for it. This is called Nataka Vayakki, and in Sanskrit it is called, the worldly one is called Ulahiyal Vayakki. Ulahiyal Vayakki and Nadaka Vayakki, two words. Exact translation of what you find in Bharata's Nagaswamy. Now here is a dancer, a delightful dancer, most delightful dancer in South, Alamelu Valli. This is purely beautiful dance pose. It doesn't suggest anything, but it is beautifying the dance. So it is something like an alankara which beautifies. Perfect pose. Hands are in perfect position. Neck, face, everything is in perfect position. Such hand gestures do not suggest anything except beautification of dance. So these are called Nritta Hastas, pure Suddha Nritta Hastas, pure dance poses. Next one. Next. Now here you have someone who is trying to suggest something. This is, with the help of these gestures, she is trying to suggest something. This is the Abhinaya part. So this hasta is called Abhinaya hasta, dance gesture. Next one. Here is another one. She is acting the Mahishasura Mardani pose, and she is trying to pierce that Mahishasura demon, and that is a suggestive Abhinaya pose. Next. And again here, this is also an Abhinaya Hasta, dance pose. And then you have what you call the emotive communication of the feeling she has, is the bhava, which she is trying to communicate to the spectator. So, a great beautiful smile. Next. Next. And this is here again, you see, in order to give a beautiful abhinaya, the eye must move along with the hand, says Natya Shastra. Yatho hastaha tato drishti. Wherever the hand goes, the eye should take you. The spectator is drawn towards the hand by her eye movement. So this is a beautiful, lovely abhinaya hasta. Next one, please. Just movement. Next. This is also an abhinaya hasta. She is just acting that she is playing on a lute or veena or tambur. Next. You can see the eye is very important. Next. Now the last one in dance pose I want to show is, that is something like a kingly pose that she is trying to suggest. And here is the story of Kannappan, one of the greatest dancers, Dhananjayan. He is trying to show that he is removing the eye. He was a hunter who removed the eye and placed it on the eye of Lord Shiva in the story. So that is, and he brings out the whole bhava on the face. So you have pure nritta hasta, beautifying element. Then you have suggestive hand gestures, and then suggestive facial bhava. All these constitute the science or art of suggestive communication. So whole dance is based on suggestive hastas, suggestive bhavas, suggestive movements. Next one. Now when one looks at a beautiful sculpture, he spontaneously explains, oh, it's poetry in stone. So the sculpture, he looks at it as poetry. Next. Now I just showed you that a knowledge of dance is very useful. Look at these legs. These have names in Nagaswamy. In order to suggest something, that particular pose is taken by the dancer, and that itself is reflected in the 700 AD sculpture from Kanchipuram, Kailasnatha temple. So the more you understand dance, you understand this process. Look at the hands. All these are also brought out by the dancers. Next one. Here is another beautiful composition. Absolutely perfect. We have this one, they call it Alida pose. Fighting. Another one is go back. One is forward and another is backward. So both these poses, Alida and Pratyalida of the Natyasastra, is shown in this sculpture so beautifully in Kiratargini, a fight portrayed in sculpture at Kanchipuram, Kailasnath. Next one. Here is another one, also the same type of poses, hand gestures and so on. Next. So aesthetic joy is called rasa. It is likened to the divine joy. Raso vai saha. He, the supreme, is the embodiment of rasa. Next. I have a few basic words. Chitra. Chitra is the word used for sculpture, painting, all aspects of art. So sculpture in India is called Chitra, and Chitra means sketch, painting, delineation, and so on. Next. Here is a sculpture which we call Bimba. Next. The silk is a sculpture. We don't know what is the root of this word, but maybe from silk. Next. Skill in art and so on. Next. Then we have another word, kala. Kala is part, a part, or to excite or impart. So it obviously excites the onlooker to taste the beauty, aesthetic joy. Also, it doesn't represent the full man who is there. It's only a part of the figure that he is portraying. So that is kala, a part of it. Next. This sculpture is from Bayon in Angkor Thom, Angkor. So to show that it is all over Southeast Asia, Just an example. Next. This silpa is called an external visual art, Bhashya Kala. Next. This is bimba, decorated image for worship. Next. We call it bimba. Next. Most of the Indian sculptures are religious images. Both the words image and imagine are from the same roots. Image is also defined as artificial imitation of an external form of an object, often of veneration. Next. This is one word which we come across, Sahridaya, one who has a sympathetic heart to experience the joy. And we have a wonderful definition of it by Abhinavagupta, who wrote a great commentary on Dhvanyaloka by Anandavardhana. Who is a Sahridaya? Who is an art connoisseur? Wonderful description. Next. Then this Abhinavagupta, we have a great work called Dhvanyaloka, great work on art, great work on poetry, commented by Abhinavagupta, written by Anandavardhana. So he says that aesthetic appreciation is called dhvani, suggestion. So there are two modes of communication divided. One is expression, what they call abhidha, and another one is suggestion, which is called vyangya or dhvani. No classical Indian sculpture could be appreciated without an understanding of the concept of suggestion. Then we have these words, Lakshana and Lakshya. Lakshana is grammar, Lakshana is what we call Ilakkanam in Tamil, Lakshya is poetry. Next. Many factors contribute to aesthetic appreciation: form, line and volume, material, space, chronology, artist, Sahridaya, the spectator, and aesthetics. Any representational form, be it a sculpture, architecture, dance or music, that gives the mind immense joy, ananda, is called poetry or beauty. Next. So we come to this most important word, kavya. Poetry was called kavya by ancient Indians. Kavaniyam or kavyam, born out of creative genius. We understand by the word kavya beautiful poetry and great poem, mahakavya, great poem. Next. So Anandavardhana says, kavyasya atma dhvani. The soul of poetry is suggestion. Kavyasya atma dhvani. Now, kavya is divided into two categories. Shravya kavya, which is verbal poetry, that is, Drishya kavya is the second, visual poetry. So, poetry, literature, and also sculpture, architecture, both of them are called kavya. One you call it Shravya kavya, and this is Drishya kavya. This is music and recital, Vedic recital, studying or reading text. This is all Shravya kavya. Dance, sculpture, painting are all visual poetry. Next. Now, this is When you see this, you really feel that's a wonderful creation. This is a first century AD sculpture from Mathura, Kushan period. You could see the joy, and you also feel the joy. Next. This is a bronze from South India, 10th century bronze made. Next. How do you get this rasa? How do you get this joy, delight of experiencing kavya? Is defined by the ancient grammarians. Vibhavaihi anubhavaicha sattikaihi vyabhicharivihi aniyamanaha rasa nishpatihi. I forget the other part of it. Time, space, line, volume, color, and sound are the main and accompanying factors all put together prepare the mind to taste the joy. Next. Natural environments softens one's mind and prepares it for the realization of the joy. Great monuments were erected in captivating surroundings. Surrounding also plays an important role. So your knowledge of Bharata's Natya Shastra, the earliest available dance treatise, is necessary for understanding Indian art. Also Kavya, Indian Kavya. Nearly 20 chapters of Bharata's Natya Shastra are devoted to sound, phonetics, words, composing poetry, and how to communicate it. All these are all defined in Bharata's Natya Shastra. Look at this sculpture. This is again a 700 AD sculpture from Kanchipuram. And this sculpture, you can understand it and appreciate it in the light of Natya Shastra. Next. And here is another great work. Just drumming. But in that drum he shows the beauty of the hands. Hastas, mudras. Next. And this is one who plays flute, engrossed in the beauty of the sound. And that you also feel that he is playing, and you also feel like playing it. Next. Now, this I have already told you, in Tamil literary tradition is deeply influenced by Sanskrit tradition, especially Bharata's Natya Shastra. Tolkappiyam, the earliest Tamil grammar, refers to Ulagiyal Vazhakku and Nadaga Vazhakku. This is done in Agathinai part of the grammar. These are the same as Logadharmi and Natyadharmi. Next. Now here is another important tradition mentioned in Tolkappiyam, which is a grammatical work, where the whole landscape is divided into hillock, forest region, and then cultivated land and coastal region. This is considered the special division of the Tamil people. But we also have the same division in Bharata's Natya Shastra: Parvatam, Vanam, Nagaram, and Varsha. Now each land has got a particular deity, presiding deity. Is Muruga in Tamil and Kartikeya in Sanskrit, Vishnu and Thirumal, Indra in both. In Sanskrit they also call him Purandara in the Natya Shastra. And Varuna, who is in charge of this coastal region. So, same tradition. This is considered to be literary. No effort has so far been done to compare the Natya Shastra with the Tamil grammar, because they thought this is only Tamil grammar. But if you take the whole grammatical treatise, Tolkappiyam, you get so many ideas that are already there in the Bharata's Natya Shastra. Next one. So there is a need for comparative study of Tolkappiyam and Natya Shastra. Next one. Yeah. There is one complete chapter in Tolkappiyam in Tamil which is devoted to the realization of rasa. And it speaks of only 8 rasas in the early tradition. Later on, Shanta was included as the 9th rasa. Santopi Navamo rasa. This is the 9th rasa. Next. I come to explain art as poetry with the help of line and volume. The line which is equivalent to Sabda in poetry creates volume. Next. Look at this beautiful sculpture. Fantastic. But what makes it so great is the beautiful line that takes you. Flowing lines. This is an 8th century sculpture from extreme south of India, Pandyan contribution, near Tinnervale. Next. Now here is another great sculpture from Kanchipuram. You have Shiva as Bhikshasana moving. His leg pose shows that he is moving forward. And then we have Rishi Patni shown. So these lines, you should have an agreeable line, not a disagreeable line, will give you a different distortion. But here you see, next, how the artist can move. This flowing line and this movement is an extraordinary, beautiful composition of the Pallava rulers, suggesting importance of line and volume. Here is another interesting sculpture. It doesn't show the sculpture in its frontality or facing the front, but they are so joyfully discussing, at the same time supporting the superstructure. So even showing the back, they can suggest there is some beauty in it. Right? Now, line creates form and volume. This is an example. Also color. Color adds, like Alankara, it gives you all these colors. Next. Here is another beautiful early sculpture, Mathura sculpture, 2nd century AD, 2nd century AD. Volume. That volume is created only by the lines, moving lines, beautiful lines. Quite late you don't get this type of moving, lovely lines, all sharp angles. They don't contribute to the next one. Here is another one. Both the importance of line and volume you could see in Indian sculpture, early Indian sculpture. Next. Now then I told you about the tala. Tala means measurement. Also tala is rhythm. Now here this head is taken as one unit and then neck is made proportionate to it, and from here you get another measurement. When all these measurements are absolutely proportionate as given in the Shastra, drawn from the experience, then you see that they are really beautiful. Next. Here is another sculpture. This is a 2nd century BC sculpture. You have the Brahmi inscriptions. This is from Barhut Buddhist stupa. A gentleman is bringing a casket. But you see the head is a little bigger and his turban is still bigger. It is slightly out of proportion. Chronologically it is all right, fine. As an art it is fine, but it doesn't have that aesthetic beauty that you saw in the earlier sculptures. Next one, because it is slightly out of proportion. Here is also another sculpture from the same Buddhist stupa. See the turban big. The artist has tried to be realistic, but not suggestive or creative. So, next. Aharya is one of the aspects of Abhinaya in Natya, where the costumes, here the costume is so well blended with the body of the Apsara or some Devata. So we call it Aharya. That is why Aharya, the costume is very, very important, and that is also an important mode of suggestion. But now we don't pay any attention to Aharya. Next. Alankara, beautification. Here is the 2nd century AD sculpture, clearly a lady dressing herself, Alankara. Nice, good. Next. There are 2 sculptures where they have minimum Alankara, but still beautiful. Next one. Next. Now, when Alankara is subordinated to the main suggestion, then you have a greater appeal. Here you have a very good sculpture example. Though there is a big ornament, necklace, it doesn't overwhelm the beauty of the main figure. So it is subordinated to the main suggestion. Next. Here is another sculpture, also 2nd century BC, from the same Buddhist one. You have an image of Lakshmi, and on both the sides you have 2 elephants pouring water, which we generally call Gaja Lakshmi. But what has happened here is, the elephants are bigger than the main image. So the subordinate ones overwhelm the main one, and so there is a loss of suggestive element in this particular sculpture. Next. Now this is a painting, 700 AD painting from Kanchipuram. The surrounding area is suppressed to show the main one coming out, so that you can appreciate its beauty. Next. But here is a painting, late 17th century painting, where this color distracts. This is so harsh and hard. You don't see the beauty of the real gopikas. They are all tender, lovely, but the red strikes at you. You don't appreciate the beauty of this. Some of the sculptures in museums are put before harsh background. You don't see, you don't appreciate it. Next one. Here is another one of the same period. See the background is subdued, so the image comes out. Just as in poetry, we have to keep the alankara subordinate to the suggestive element. Next one. Here is another 11th century sculpture of Nritta Ganapati, dancing Ganesha. He is in the main niche, Koshta, Deva Koshta. But he is not the only sculpture, not only deity, there are so many other sculptures also. But all of them are shown secondary in small size to enhance the beauty of the main sculpture. Exactly like poetry, where you have to keep always in mind the suggestive element as the foremost, so that rasa aswadana is felt. This is a good example. So from 10th, 11th century you see the Devakoshta sculptures bigger, and the surrounding sculptures are all made smaller. This is the 11th century trend. Next one. Here is how the surrounding is beautifully distributed in the 700 AD sculpture. Inside there is a huge sculpture of Shiva. Of course, when we stand here we can see that. But the surrounding smaller secondary deities are framed so lovely, they don't distract the main sculpture. beauty of the main sculpture. Next one. This is a masterpiece. If ever you happen to go to India, I wish all of you go to India, and go to Madhya Pradesh Central Park, and then there is a place called Sanchi, which is well known for its Buddhist sculptures. From there only 20 minutes drive is this place, which is called Udayagiri. It's called Udayagiri. But you go before this sculpture, it will take your breath away. You just simply sit down and you say, oh, what a great sculpture. Fantastic sculpture. I simply sat for half an hour, I couldn't move. I couldn't move my eyes. So great is this one. It's more than 10, 12 feet, carved out of rock, with all the surrounding sculptures for which your emphasis is given. And look at the devas who come to adore, like small pygmies here. The power with which Varaha Vishnu lifted the whole earth is brought out so magnificently in this sculpture. This is one of the earliest Gupta sculpture, 4th century AD. Next. Sir, here is another sculpture. This is from South India, from a place called Namakkal. Very few people go there, very few people see this. This is around 700 AD. Here again there is a Varaha lifting Mother Earth. And this is the floor level. It's a rocket sculpture. But Varaha went dived into the ocean and brought out the Mother Earth. The artist intentionally to suggest that Varaha is coming up from the depth of the ocean, he has left the legs without a carving. That is just suggested. You see him coming out of the water, lifting the Mother Earth. And look at the distribution. A great artist. It comes very naturally to him to distribute the sculpture and suggest this element. So here is an example of the intention of the artist to create the suggestion by utilizing the nature surroundings. Next. Here is another great sculpture, a bronze image of Shiva feeding a mriga, jumping up, standing on his hind leg, and look at his hand, just giving few grass. That suggests he is Pasupati. Shiva is the Lord of the living being. The mriga suggests the living being. These are the suggestive poses that you find in all the bronzes of the mature Chola period. Next one. Now this you know, I am going to show you a few examples. Rasas are divided into Sringara, Hasya, Karuna, Raudra, Veera, Bhayanakaha, Bibhatsa, Adbhuta, Santasya. Santa is introduced later, but 8. Early only 8. Now they are not the 8 different rasas, 8 different sources through which you get rasa. Next. Here is Parvati's marriage. A young girl marrying Shiva, with a tender feeling, slight bend of the head, with a feeling in her face made of bronze, 11th century, beginning of 11th century. It is Sringara. Next. Again, Sringara. Next. Sringara Bhava requires soft, evocative stones. You see the lines there. Rishi Patni is going after Shiva. Next. Now here is a very interesting sculpture. This is a 2nd century BC sculpture from Barhut. It's a huge elephant It is being drawn by monkeys. All monkeys are there to the beat of drum and music. Drum beat, and then the huge rope is being carried. They take him in procession. Take the elephant in procession. Let us see where they go. Next. Halfway through, suddenly the monkeys thought, why should we go in front of this huge animal? Why not we jump on it when we go? And so all of them jumped on it back. And there is no space, so it caught hold of the tail. It didn't catch hold of the tail of the elephant, but it catch hold of the pre of the monkey, pulling it so that it can go. And still the music goes on. And he goes, this huge elephant animal goes in procession. Great music, great drum beating, great march. Next. Here we have come. The purpose for which they are taking him. The elephant has become small. The huge rope, with the huge rope and a tongue, the monkeys are removing his nostril hair, pulling it out. They are not able to pull it out. You see, it's struggling. The elephant is not able to pull it out, struggling. And then here is another one trying to do some mischief with his hand. So this is a very good example of 2nd century BC, how the sculpture suggests hasya. You feel like laughing at this portrayal. Next. This is the samhara aspect of Shiva down. You feel the samhara heat of Shiva's down. 8th century. Next. Here is a beautiful sculpture of Shiva as Ardhanarishwara. And this part is broken, but you could see the treatment of the eye, the lips, nose, and the hairdo. It's a masterpiece of sculptural portrayal. Next one. This is Shiva kicking Yama, the god of death, as Kala Kala. It's also a 700 scale sculpture. It's a beautiful portrayal. You can see the agony of Kala, and Shiva just pushing him out. Next. And this is a raised brow and ball-like eye is suggested and prescribed in Natya Shastra, which is called Raudra Drishti. When you want to show ferocious, furious aspect, then you show the ball-like eye. And this is practiced in modern times in Kerala, where they pay much attention to the movement of eyes, and not the other part of India, other dancers don't do that. But I can tell you one thing. You tell me the time, whether I am going beyond time.
It's 4:30. 5:30, sir.
Huh?
5:30.
5:30? I can stop in 2 minutes, sir. Then there is one demonstration in a theatre of a dance from one gentleman from Kerala. He came, and he said he was wearing pant and shirt, no costume, nothing. And he came on the stage, we all laughed, what is this man going to show us? Abhinaya. And he said he was a chemist now. He was originally a Kathakali dancer, he is now a chemist. He said, just watch, I don't say anything. He went on to one side of the stage, and then he showed with his gestures trees, plants, flowers, animals, birds, everything through only gestures. And the animals jumping, and a hunter coming and just aiming an arrow. The entire audience of more than 1,000 stood up and gave him a clap, which I can never forget. The power of suggestion practiced by the Indian dancers. These are all prescribed in Bharata's Natya Shastra, codified and given to us out of experience. These are all out of experience which they have given to us. And this is one such thing that the eyebrow is lifted and ball like one. Next one. This is another great piece. No time. Next. This is Veera. I go a little fast. Veera, representation of heroism. Next. This is Adbhuta Rasa. Next. Just suggestion. Shiva holding the fire. Next. Anugraha. Next. This is so much. Dance of Shiva has been studied and said several times by many expert scholars on art. Next. Next. That's a beautiful smile. One of the earliest Nataraja. Beautiful smile. Next. Here, just treatment of lips. Next. Now there are 2 points I will be showing and then I will finish. One of the greatest sculptures is from Karnataka, on the outskirts of Bangalore, on Sevana Belgola, where on a top of a hill stands for 80 feet high this great Bahubali, which Tirthankara sculpture. It is wonderful. You go on top of the hill and see nothing behind. 80 feet, one of the most beautiful sculptures of India of that period. And they do once in 12 years great Abhisheka on it. That time you must go and you see it's something wonderful. Next. All these were not, these are all not there. These are all temporary. They will be removed. So it just stands against the vast, expansive sky as the backdrop. Next. I am no Jain, but when I went and saw that, I became more than a Jain. It's so beautiful. Next. That influenced many other sculptures, but none could come anywhere near that earlier point. Next one, please. Lovely bronze of Shiva, Tripurantaka. Next. Now, not only sculpture, but even the surrounding. A great temple on the banks of such rivers. When you approach the monument, when you see the sculpture in the best time, morning or evening, then you understand and appreciate the beauty of it. Next. Here is the great festival like Madurai. Now, yesterday it should have taken place in Madurai, where Vishnu is brought to the river by a bed. And the whole crowd you see, or we say devotees you see, they have been standing there for the whole night, singing and dancing. And it is in the early morning, just before the sunrise, that God is brought in procession to that river. Next. And here is the God in a golden harp who is being carried to the singing and dancing to the river. It's something great experience. Next. Warning. Next. Now here, I hope you can stay for 5 minutes. Now here is a mandala, and the color, each color has a meaning. Next. See, 1,000 parts are arranged like this as a mandala, which are used for Abhisheka. Next. There is a mandala, which may look nothing for us, but this is called Vastu Purusha Mandala. Before a monument is erected, these drawings are made on the ground, and different deities are located in those places. The entire cosmos, the planets, the stars, the sun, moon, and all all other things that are known to them, secondary deities, all of them are distributed in each square. Next one. They are all invoked. The square is only a suggestive element to suggest the deities. Next one. Over which these great monuments, it is a Vastu Purusha Mandala drawn before the building of these temples are erected, and all those suggestive squares are made into sculpture and distributed in the in the niches. Next one. Now here is a kunda, circular. This is meant for Nataraja, invocation of Nataraja. So this is a suggestive element for invoking the primordial invocation in fire as circle. Next, Shanmukha. For each deity there is a different form, and that form gives the form for the superstructure, architecture. Next. This is a hero stone, 600 AD hero stone, which gave rise to so many village gods and goddesses. Next. Here is a temple. It is in the midst of forest. There is a deity. There is no structure, no building. The forest itself is the temple where he is located. So these are, what do you call them? Do you call them a classical temple or folk temple? Which tells us such beautiful compositions, suggestive compositions are classical or folk. Next. I come to the last part of my talk, a few sculptures. This is a Bhuta. Bhuta, is a spirit. Next. This Bhuta worship in South Karnataka. There is no structure, only a platform, and this was built in 1972, where these shields and masks are all kept there and they are worshipped. Worshipped at dead of the night. Next. This is the Bhuta face mask. Next. Here is a particular group of people who make their own costume. Next. He colors his face. He performs a dance at dead of the night in whom the god manifests. He gets possessed. It reminds us of what we call Velan Veriyadal in Tamil literature. Next one. Here is a person who wears the syllable and he sings and he dances. When he dances, he creates a direction and a space, and in the center of it he dances. And the last slide perhaps. Now here he says, it is the personification or manifestation of the Bhuta who says, who addresses the whole community, village community, right at 3 o'clock in the night. Here I am for the sake of you. I am ready to sacrifice myself for you. Will you all behave properly, look after your children, care for the people who have got illness, and so on, promise me. So one man, it's a beautiful poetry, he sings a poetry. And here is a man, the village headman, who says, I promise we will all do that. And that takes place in the midst of a thick forest where you can't even go after sunset. And when you talk of Bhutam, you get afraid. And no light, nowhere. The only light you have is your car light. And if you go a little shudder, there is some branch falls off. You cross all these and go to the midst of the village where there are hardly 200 people. This Bhutam Martin takes place. So it is not. Next, this is the last one. It goes on in many places. Next one. Here is another one. And so I wanted to just present before you, it's not only poetry, it is poetry where we think of the pradhana and suggestive element. It is also in sculpture, it's also in painting, it is also in music. Of course, I could demonstrate with beautiful music all this. And also, with actual life, you can see the role of the suggestive element, vyangya, and the impact of this vyangya on the human mind to enable it to enjoy the aesthetic joy which we call rasa. Thank you, friends, for your time and learning.
Thank you. We have about 20 minutes for questions.
Professor, thank you so much for the talk. I was wondering if you could say a little bit more about when you were discussing about the role of rhyme in creating